Hello, everyone. It is Morgan from Mid-Continent Public Library Square One Small Business Services team and the business of food trucks. You might also recognize my friends and I from Food Ed, not fooded, but Food Ed, as in food business education. Tonight we have the second in our series of food truck workshops for fall 2021. We are so excited to bring you these learning opportunities. If you remember what happened in the first one, it was all about, don't boo, it was accounting and finances, but it's really important. So if you missed out on the accounting and finances class, please check out our list of classes, email us, we'll see if we can get you a copy of that, or at least the spreadsheet that Kim created to help you price your items without losing any money. So really important stuff. I also want to remind you that after this workshop, you are going to see Jackie from Cafe and Xander with the Innovation Center for marketing, branding, and advertising for food trucks. You know, the thing you don't plan for because you don't want to think about it, and then you open up and you're like, wait a second, I built it, where are they at? That's where the advertising and marketing and branding comes in. So email us. Megan's going to drop it in the comments like 12 times tonight. You are going to get that information if you would like access to it. Now, for those of you who do not have your handout for tonight, Megan's about to drop that link. Click on it. You want the handout for this class. It's amazing. Thank you so much, August. You're about to meet him, for putting that together for us. So just a couple of housekeeping things. Number one, tonight is about you, and I mean all about you. So if you have a question, drop it in the comments. We're even going to flash it up at the bottom of the screen. That's how important your questions are. Tonight's about you, not about us. So please ask your questions. This is your chance. We want to make sure you get the opportunity to connect with the information. We're librarians. It's a big deal around here. Number two, there's going to be a survey at the end. We are grant funded. Thank you, Kauffman Foundation, for giving us the money to do these awesome educational opportunities. But we need your feedback. We count on you to tell us if we're doing a good job, what you want to see next, if you need a repeat of something. So it's really important to check out that survey link at the end of the class. It's like 5 questions. It'll take you 4 minutes. Okay, we're about to get started. So warm up your fingers because we're gonna want you to drop your name in the comments and what kind of food truck you have. So let's get hyped up, getting our pin out. We're clicking the link because we want to see the worksheet. We're getting our brains ready. Let's go. August.
Hi, I'm August Spallo, and I am the owner-operator of Chavella Ice Creamery and Bakery. We are a made-from-scratch, made-to-order ice cream sandwich truck. I had zero background in restaurant and food trucking. I had 41 years in education, and this was something I absolutely wanted to do when I retired from education. So I hope I can answer some questions tonight and help you guys get started on the business of food trucks. Now, Chef Ezra.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chef Ezra. I am the owner-operator of KC Cajun, Kansas City's authentic Louisiana Bayou food truck. I moved here from Mississippi in about 2008, 2009, around that time. And I noticed that there was a real big shortage of authentic Louisiana food. So I decided to start my own food truck a few years later. So that journey listed us down a long road of finding out some trials and tribulations and basically just putting our wheels to the road and getting right out there and just learning as we went along. So tonight we're going to kind of walk you guys through some of the tips that we learned so you guys don't have to make those same mistakes, and so you guys can kind of get a head start and do some brainstorming and kind of figure out what you need to do prior to getting on the road as far as menu design, picking out the type of truck you need, things like that. So we'll touch on a few little topics as we go along. So we'll jump right on into it. We'll start off with being sure that you guys type your comments in below. We want you to type your name and what city you're from, what type of food truck you're interested in starting, or if you have a food truck, what type of food truck you currently have. And then be sure as we go along to type your questions, and we'll be sure to answer those as we go along. Okay? So we got a few classes. Tonight we're going to talk about those basically maintenance issues and things that you need to know about starting your food truck. The class we had before this was on marketing and branding. We have another class that'll be coming up that'll be regulatory rundown. That'll be November 16th. And then we got let's see here. Timeline. I think August is going to jump in and talk about that real quick.
Again, having no background, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I'm a list guy. And so this allowed me to create a list starting at 4 months out, 16 weeks out from opening our door. What did I need to do? Narrow it down to 12 weeks, then 8 weeks, then a month out. And then 2 weeks out, and then the week of opening our doors, of all of the different things that I had learned from different people and the internet, of things that I should be aware of. But this allowed me to keep track of everything and not let something fall through the tracks. All right, now we're going to get into menu development.
All right, this is probably everyone's favorite topic, displaying your food, your items. We always say in the food truck business, cooking the food is actually the easy part, okay? That's what we're kind of known to do as chefs. So if you have a chef background, cooking food is normally typically the easy part when you look at the whole details of operating a food truck. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about menu setup, okay? So once you have a good general idea of what kind of cuisine you want to go into, and we'll break the trucks up into two different topics. We have sweets or treats, which would be the savory sweet trucks, that you basically, your dessert trucks, ice cream trucks, donut trucks, things like that. Then you're going to have your entree trucks, savory entree trucks. Those are going to be more of your meals. So things like nachos, anything that's going to be more of an entree serving versus a dessert, okay? And that's how we're going to break up the two categories in general for the two types of trucks. And when it comes to your menu, the first thing you want to do is highlight your best dish, okay? Your best dish, what's your number one seller in your menu or off of your menu? And you want to locate that generally in the upper left-hand corner so people will know when they're reading down your menu, that's where their eyes go first. They go right to that menu. You can highlight it with a bolder font, put some color around it. But you basically want to start off with highlighting your best menu. And you basically generally break it down on what is your best seller, okay? What are you selling the most of? And you want to designate that upper left-hand corner in your menu for that space, okay? And that's going to be where people generally draw their eyes to when they get ready to order. Now, use all of your ingredients to the fullest. That is another key when it comes to developing your menu. Now, on our truck, we use generally 4 proteins. We have shrimp, we have crawfish, we have pork, which is usually our pork sausage, and then we have chicken, okay? And everything else on our menu is kind of based around those four menu items. We generally don't have hamburger, not because we don't know how to cook it or we don't have items for it. It's just an expense we don't really want to incur because we don't use a lot of it. Now, occasionally we'll serve hamburgers, and that's just, we'll buy just a few pounds of hamburger meat, and once we use it, it's done. Okay, so we're not having to go to the grocery store weekly and incorporate that cost for one item on our menu, and that's really important. We have generally about 12 items, 10 to 12 items. We display about 8 to 10 on a general day, and we can do those around those 4 to 5 proteins that I mentioned. Okay. Offer only key items on your menu, okay? You don't want to have items on there you're not selling a lot of. So we don't really sell a lot of hamburgers on our dinners. For lunch sometimes, so certain locations we do. So we'll offer it for those situations. But generally, you don't want to offer items you're not selling a lot of because you're generally losing money. Make your board easy to update, okay? That's really, really, really important for us because we make everything to scratch. and we try to offer a variety of items for people that are allergic to seafood. That's a big general allergy that you will come across. Some people have peanut allergies, wheat allergies, soy allergies, egg allergies. So you also have to think about that with your menu, okay? What item, if someone comes to your truck, will they be able to purchase if they have allergies such as those? On our truck, that's why we have chicken. That's one of our second dishes that we use most of outside of our seafood. That's because a lot of people come to the truck that have seafood allergies. I've never met anyone before I moved here that had a seafood allergy coming from the southern states where we generally enjoy seafood every day. So that was a new thing to me, but I had to make an adjustment. Okay, everyone that come to the truck, they need seafood. So, and then another thing, we also have a vegan item. So we do have a vegan item that we rotate in and out. Choose the right colors and visuals. Okay, you don't want something that's hard to read. Usually, a dark background with a light writing, a light font would be easier for them to read. But then as it gets darker, okay, it's hard to read that at night. So you want to make sure you have lights above your menu in order to highlight that. And also the colors with your branding, okay, that's also important. So if you have a color scheme where you're using a lot of purples or real dark colors, you don't want to go with something orange or something red that's going to clash with that, okay? You kind of want to incorporate that in your brand colors. Proofread your menu, okay? Make sure your pricing is correct and make sure that your spelling is correct, okay? That's also important. They can give people a bad vibe if they come to your truck and they see that things aren't priced right or things are misspelled. Avoid fancy fonts and calligraphy, okay? That's important because first thing you want your menu to be is readable, okay? You want it to be visible, you want it to be readable, you want it to be legible, okay? If someone comes to your truck and they're not able to read it, okay, that for one, they're probably gonna ask you a lot of questions in the window, which will slow you down, or they may even just walk away, okay? So you gotta think about that as well. Now, moving on to menu displays. Now, this is gonna be talking about more or less the types of menu you can actually have presented at your truck, okay? We have printable menus, which is usually what you see at a general restaurant, especially now with COVID. Those are more customer friendly, okay? Those are usually disposable menus. You can print out, hand them out to your customers. They can either take them or they can, bottle them up, throw them in the trash, whatever they want to do with them, but you prefer them not to do that, of course. But they can do whatever they want with those menus. They're not something you're going to take back into the window and have to either clean. Those menus are going to be something they can take away. You also have magnetic boards. So that's a good example of the picture here on the display. Those are boards you can basically just hang up on your truck, okay? That's real quick and allowing you to make changes, okay? So if you run out of item, you can quickly take it down, scratch it off, remove it, put it back up, or put a new item on that menu. Also, you have menu boards, okay? Those are going to be kind of like the triangular boards you see that be on the street walks that kind of have an idea of what the menu is going to be or just kind of bringing you into the truck. And it can be a different variety. You can also consider a magnetic board, a menu board. It's just a flat surface you're going to be able to write on. Menu board displays digital QR codes. That's a huge thing right now with COVID, okay? We started that last year on our truck, just something that we were really playing around with. We didn't really think it was going to take off throughout the whole industry. But QR codes allow the person to come up to the truck, open up their smartphone, their camera, scan that QR code, and it'll take them to an online menu, okay? And that way they're able to order straight from their phone or take their phone to the truck and show other people, okay? That's going to be one of the more COVID-friendlier options and cost-effective, okay? With the printable menus, you have to incur that cost to get them printed. With the QR code, you just print one QR or several QR codes, post them on your truck, and then the smartphone will do the rest of that. Okay, choosing right equipment. I think that's going to be me. We're going to talk quickly about what you need to do to start your food truck. Okay, what will come first? All right. First thing you're probably going to need to do is figure out your generator situation. Okay, that's a big expense you're going to have to incur. What type of truck are you going to need? Are you going to need a truck that's going to be a larger truck or a smaller truck? Okay. With the sweet trucks, you kind of have the smaller trucks. Those are kind of what August have. We have an entree truck, which is more of a full-size dessert truck. And I'll let August jump in and talk a little bit more about what else you'll need starting off.
Thanks, Chef. Real quick, back to menus. I want to jump on a little bit of what Chef Ezra was talking about. My recommendation is to start small. You can always add stuff to your menu. But if you have repeat customers, it doesn't look good if you're starting with 20 items and 2 weeks later you're down to 10 items. And be careful of your wording. We had butter pecan ice cream on our menu. For the first 2 months, we didn't sell any butter pecan ice cream. So I started thinking about the process that I made it. I changed the name to brown butter toasted pecan. It is now crazy popular with the people that come to our truck. So the name does mean a lot. And another thing, about once a month, we typically will have someone come up and ask, what are our dairy-free options and what are our gluten-free options? Now, if you've ever seen our truck, you know, on the side of the truck, we have a huge glass of milk and 3 ice cream sandwiches. So it's obvious that we have a lot of dairy and wheat in our products. We don't carry, unless requested at a private event, dairy-free and gluten-free, because it would just sit on the truck until once a month somebody came by and got it. Anyway, back to equipment. There's a photograph there of Susie and I purchasing our first truck, and then what it looked like after we got the truck wrapped by Rev 2. So if you're looking for a truck wrap company, oh my gosh, they did a great job. Anyway, I was attending a Mid-Continent Public Library workshop. I attended many of them. I cannot encourage you enough. Attend those workshops. A great piece of advice Morgan Perry gave to the whole class. Don't buy the truck first and then start doing everything else. So what I did was I started looking at all of the equipment that we were going to need inside the truck, what the size of all of that equipment was, no matter how small, not just the freezer, the refrigerator, but also the sink, the wastebasket. I had to account for how much space Susie and I were going to take up inside the truck. I got all those measurements, added them up, knew how much square footage I was going to need inside the truck. Then I was ready to go out and start looking for a truck. Also, used versus new. I am not a handy guy. So fixing a muffler, fixing a carburetor is not in my wheelhouse. And so I bought a new truck. I found a truck that was hail damaged. We got a third of the price off for that truck. Never could find the hail damage on the truck. But that was worth it to me to pay more for new equipment, new freezer, new refrigerator, because I knew I wouldn't be able to fix it if it broke. So it gave me peace of mind to be able to buy new as opposed to used. We've got a generator video coming up. Real quick story. At another MCPL workshop, Brandon Simpson, owner of Jazzy Bees, told a story about how he was driving down the highway. He thought he had his generator attached to his carrier behind his truck, and he looked in the rearview mirror and his generator was bouncing down the highway as he was driving along. So everyone laughs at me when they see my 2 generators, because I have each generator individually strapped down with a ratchet strap, but I also have an 800-pound chain running through each of those generators attached to the carrier. That way I don't ever have to see my generator bouncing down the highway. And now the video.
In order to choose a generator, you'll need to know your wattage requirements. You'll determine your wattage requirements by taking a close look at all the electric devices on your truck. Each one has a tag. Make note of the watts. Be sure to include anything that will be powered by your generator. Sometimes this will include lighting, signs, a water pump, your POS system, or even your cell phone charger. If you can't locate the tag listing the wattage requirements, check the owner's manual. Once you have your list of appliances with the wattage requirements, add 20% to make sure your generator does not have to run nonstop at full power. For example, this food truck will need a sandwich prep station, 1800 watts, a rice cooker, 105 watts, a steam table, 1000 watts, a stand mixer, 1800 watts, a panini press, 1750 watts, and a crepe maker, 1650 watts. That brings the total wattage to 8105. 20% of that is 1621, and 8105 plus 1621 is 9726 watts. So, this food truck should look for a generator that will power at least 9700 watts. Remember that choosing the right generator is one of the most important operational decisions you will make as a food truck owner. You don't want to lose power in the middle of an event.
All right, so that was a great little video about what you need to calculate kind of what size power or how many watts you're going to need for your generator in order to power your truck. Now, we're going to jump on into food safety and cleaning. Okay, this is another huge component that's going to take up a lot of your time with the truck as far as daily duties, making sure that you're running your truck in a safe manner. Okay, and this basically just boils down to the general rules of food safety. Most of this information you're going to be getting from your your health department, your local jurisdiction. You'll be able to go there, get information pertaining to what you need to do in order to keep your employees safe and your customers safe that are purchasing the food from your truck. A couple of things you're going to need is going to be your food safety or food handler's license, okay? And that varies based on your jurisdiction. But here in Kansas City, we're required to have food safety if you're going to be handling food. And if you're a manager, basically if you're rotating duties or you're the person in charge, you have to have a manager's card. Now that's going to talk about food safety basics. Simple things is cross-contamination, making sure temperatures are being controlled, whether you're holding food or whether you're cooking food and cooling it down, or either defrosting things such as chicken, okay, running it in a water bath. Food hazards, so things as allergies, things as shellfish. How do you go about purchasing your shellfish and making sure that it's tagged correctly from your vendor? Cross-contamination, we mentioned that, making sure that when you store your items on your truck, because one thing on the truck, you have limited space, okay? So you're trying to cram things in little small areas, but you have to make sure that you're doing it in a safe manner. So you don't necessarily want to be storing your desserts underneath raw chicken, okay? If you have raw chicken on the top, that chicken can start thawing out and the liquid can fall and say that it gets on one of your cupcakes that you have, okay? You can't visually tell that it's happening, but if you hand that cupcake to a customer and they eat it, they're probably going to get sick. Practicing proper hygiene, okay? So things like hairnets, showing up to having your employees show up, making sure that they're groomed correctly, not having long beards and long fingernails and things of that such. Basically just making sure that they're presentable to where your customers doesn't have anything that they're seeing visually that's going to deter them from your truck. Purchasing and receiving safe food. So that's another big thing. We ran across this at first when we started because we wanted to get wild alligator, but you can't necessarily purchase wild alligator and bring it across state lines. So you have to purchase farm-raised alligator, all right? So that's a big thing. Wild game, deer meat, things like that. You don't want to necessarily be serving it on your truck because that's not from a safe vendor. If there's a TB outbreak or something like that with that meat, they need to be able to track that back to the vendor and do a recall on it. If you're getting meat from Cousin Willie out the freezer, there's no way for them to know where that meat's coming from. So you got to make sure you're purchasing your food from safe vendors. Equipment and utensils, making sure you're using proper equipment when it comes to things like mixing. You don't want to use mixers that are going to have pieces that are going to be coming apart in your whatever it is you're mixing. Utensils, you want to make sure you're using safe, approved utensils that doesn't have any type of carcinogens or components that's going to affect your cooking. Prepping, cooking, and serving food safety. So that's probably the most important thing. On the truck, Generally, you're going to be prepping at a commissary and loading that truck on that food onto your truck to go out about and sell your food to customers. So as you prep your food, you're usually going to be on a truck like ours, an entree truck. We're cooking a lot of chicken. We're cooking a lot of shrimp. And as we cook that food, if we're going to be holding it, we have to bring it down to a certain temperature in a certain time frame and make sure that it's cool quickly. Okay, so they'll talk about that, and that's really important. Making sure that your staff go through a training program to understand what things come into detail with cleaning daily and making sure that they're storing food and handling food safely. Cleaning and sanitizing. Okay, so you have a 3-bay sink. You want to make sure that you're loading your 3-bay sink with your rinse water, your soap water, and your sanitizer water. Okay, that's important to make sure that you're cleaning your dishes and also sanitizing it to make sure that it's disinfected. Facility safety. Okay, so that goes back to that commissary, making sure you have a commissary log. You're documenting your times that you spend at your commissary. You're going through safe, proper cleaning techniques and storage techniques when you come through prepping and storing your food. And best practices. What are the best practices in your general industry? So if you have a dessert truck, you can go see what the best practices are in dessert trucks for, say, cleaning out an ice cream machine. How often do I need to clean out this ice cream machine? You can look at your manufacturer's recommendations and also get that information. Now, I recommend breaking your cleaning up into a schedule. Create your cleaning schedule tasks listed by what are your daily tasks versus your weekly tasks versus your monthly tasks, and then versus your quarterly or your yearly tasks. And this will help make sure that you're staying on top of your schedule, making sure that your truck is staying clean. You don't get behind on any of your cleaning or maintenance items because you're handling them on a daily to weekly to monthly basis, and making sure basically you don't incur or generate any hazards as far as getting behind on your cleaning. So one big issue with the entree trucks is grease. If you're dealing with grease, open flames on your truck, that's going to generate a lot of vapor, a lot of vapor throughout the truck, a lot of grease, and what we call basically is it turns to like a sticky substance. And what that does is that gets all over your truck. It gets on your windows, it gets on your walls, and it definitely gets in your vent hood, which is what sucks the moisture and the vapor out of the truck. And it's important that you stick to the schedule with that on your cleaning with your fire approved company to make sure that that's properly cleaned, because you don't want that grease to build up and then it creating stalagmites and getting so thick that it basically starts to create a fire hazard. Okay. And that can definitely happen. Okay, so here's a picture here. Here's an example of a truck that caught fire. Okay, this is a complete loss. No one was hurt in this particular incident, but you can imagine how much shock and how much destruction that incurred. And you can see behind, if you look closely behind there, it actually tore up part of the apartment complex back there. You can kind of see some of the roof up there, kind of like hanging off. So that was a big fire. So you don't want to get behind on your cleaning. I mentioned that because it can generate a bigger problem, and it can lead to basically a total loss of your truck if you have an issue like a fire breakout. Okay, so stay on top of your cleaning duties. Make sure you break them up into a manageable schedule. You disperse those tasks throughout your staff, and make sure that everyone knows how to go through and clean certain items, so not one person is stuck left doing that item. All right, now we're moving on to maintenance. So this is going to be more or less focusing on the outside of your truck. Okay, cleaning is more of the inside of your truck. Maintenance is going to be focusing on the outside of your truck. So, as we mentioned earlier, there are two types of trucks: the sweet truck and the savory truck. Now, generally, the sweet trucks are a lot smaller, maybe around 5,000 to 6,000 pounds, maybe up to about 8,000 pounds. Based on how big they are. I have seen dessert trucks a lot bigger, but generally they're a lot smaller. The entree trucks are generally can range from medium size to extra large, okay? And that range from about 8,000 pounds up to anywhere to about 15 to 17,000 pounds, okay? And that's important because you have to realize what you're driving, okay? You're kind of driving a semi-tank, all right? This is a big truck. Unlike a car, which is generally about 2,000 pounds, An average entree truck is about 6 times that size. Okay, so it's more wear and tear on that truck as you go through the rough streets and hit the potholes. As you're having to do oil changes on those vehicles, it's more maintenance involved in that, and it's important that you stay on top of that, because if you get behind, as I mentioned, it's going to cause a larger issue. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the don'ts. When it comes to your maintenance, don't ignore dashboard lights. Okay, if you have a check engine light that comes on, you need to address that. That's pretty important. Okay, you need to try to get that addressed pretty immediately, I say, because you don't want to keep driving with that check engine light on and it generate a bigger issue, and then you think you can make it to the next event, and next thing you know, your truck breaks down on the side of the road. And generally, what I tell people, any expense that you're going to incur in a food truck is going to be on average 3 to 4 times that amount in a food truck. Okay, so say you get a tow in a car, it's about $100, $125. In a food truck, it's about $300 up to $500. Okay, so you want to try to minimize the time you're going to have with your truck breaking down on the side of the road, and address that in a preemptive, preventative maintenance. Don't ignore maintenance instructions in the truck manual. Okay, this is important because all trucks are going to be weighted different based on the frame of that truck, who built that truck, and what that truck was intended to carry. So you can think about it. You have the box trucks, which are kind of more like the UPS style trucks. Those trucks were made to carry anything from bread all the way up to large heavy equipment such as tools. Okay, so those weight ranges, which is determined by the gross vehicle weight, and we'll talk about this a little later, which is what the manufacturer has determined that frame to be able to carry based on what they rated it as. Okay, so that can range based on what type of truck you bought. We bought a bread truck. Our first couple of years, we ran it pretty heavy. We were right at the maximum of our gross vehicle weight, which is about 12,000 pounds. We were about 11,300. But after a couple of years, we ended up wearing out our shocks and actually breaking a seal on our distributor, our rear wheel distributor. So that ended up costing us about $6,000 last year. We ended up having to pay that. So I can kind of say I got behind on it, or I didn't address it early enough, and that ended up becoming a bigger issue to where it costs more money later on. So that's why I say be sure to try to address your maintenance issues as you go along, and if it becomes an immediate issue, you need to address it. Don't assume that the mechanic is always right. Okay, be sure that you get a reliable mechanic. Okay, and there are 2 types of mechanics when it comes to food trucks. All right, you have a mechanic that have a shop where you can actually take your truck in and put it in a bay and get it worked on. Then you have a mobile mechanic. Okay, these are usually going to be a quick fix, somebody that can meet you on the side of the road, patch you up real quick, get you to your event, or even if they have to tow you to your event, make sure you get to that event. The mobile mechanics are going to be a little more costlier because they are actually coming to you, but they are pivotal. Okay, depending on where you're at. If you're far out away from a shop, you can't get to a shop. You're trying to not incur a tow. Maybe it's a quick fix, something where you had a flat. You need somebody to come change a tire real quick. That mobile mechanic can come do that. And also, don't always assume that your go-to mechanic is the person you need to go to. Always get a second opinion, okay? Especially if you feel like that it's a little pricier or if it's not really adding up. Always try to get a second opinion. And don't ignore preventative maintenance, okay? When you go back to that schedule where I talked about daily, weekly, monthly, you should also create one of those for your maintenance on your truck. We have a checklist we'll show you a little later that we'll talk about that. But don't get behind on that preventative maintenance, because that maintenance is going to prevent you from breaking down and having to spend more money on the side of the road, and also keeping you from missing events. The do's, okay? This is important. The do's when it comes to those big trucks. Be sure that you check your tires every 3,000 miles, okay? A truck like our size, because we have a larger weight, we have a dual frame, a dual rear distribution on the rear of our truck, meaning we have 4 wheels, so 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. Okay, it's important that you check both of those, each four of those tires in the back. I generally check them every day for nails, looking at them for wear, making sure that they look like they're up to pressure. But definitely check them every 3,000 miles to make sure that your pressure hasn't fallen on those trucks. Now, especially now that we're getting into the colder season, if you're operating your truck during this time. Learn how to do simple repairs. So August mentioned he didn't really have a strong background when it comes to mechanics. I didn't at first neither. I ended up learning some things as I went, quick fixes that I can do, but I generally rely on my mobile mechanic to bail me out of situations. I got a real good mobile mechanic that can meet me and get me back on the road if I have something that happens. So he can actually lift the truck up on the side of the road, so that can help with changing flats and things like that. So that's a big advantage. So I advise you to make sure you get you a mobile mechanic stored in your phone, and also a mechanic that has a shop. Have a large truck mechanic on speed dial. Okay, I just mentioned that. So start off now. Store that in your phone, because the last thing you want in a situation like we had, we're coming back from an event at the end of the day. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. We done worked third event of the day in the truck. We catch a flat in the middle of nowhere. So then we're basically up all night waiting for a tow truck. It ended up turning into a whole situation where I could have avoided if I would have had a mechanic in my phone that I could call. But we'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out who we can call to get off the side of the road. Maintain a truck log, okay? So this is important. It goes back to that maintenance schedule we talked about. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. I got a picture of one I want to show you guys. Be picky when it comes to gas stations, okay? And I say that because not all gas stations are going to have high quality gas, particularly when it comes to your generators. I found out with our generator, we had to use a non-ethanol gasoline, because of the amount of char that was building up in our generator. It was causing an issue with us having to get it maintained and cleaned out more than we wanted to. So we went from a regular, low octane fuel, which is a cheaper grade, to non-ethanol, which is basically one of the more expensive gas you use in a small engine such as a generator. The other thing I want to mention is the gas station. A good tip someone gave me is never fill up any of your vehicles at a gas station if the gas truck is there actually filling up the gas tank. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because if they fill up those gas tanks, it's creating a mixture down in the bottom, and it's basically getting that debris that has settled down in the tank starting to float around. So it's a good chance you can pick up some of that in your tank, in your carburetor, as you go filling in as they disturb that gas in the bottom of the tank. So if you see a gas truck at a gas station, just go to the next gas station if you can, or come back. Gross vehicle weight, I mentioned that earlier, okay? So that's the manufacturer's recommended weight limit for your vehicle, and that varies based on what the truck was rated to carry, okay? I've seen them as high as up to 25,000 pounds, depending on what that truck was rated for. But on food trucks in general, anywhere from about 6,000 up to about 15,000 pounds would be good enough for you to carry all the equipment that you have. Our truck, fully loaded, is about 11,800 pounds. So you will have to calculate that. And one thing I want to also mention is when it comes to building out your truck, if you can, use a recommended builder that has experience with building the food trucks, because it's a combination of building a food truck and knowing the food codes in your jurisdiction to know what melds together to work in a perfect scenario. That'll help prevent you from having to go back and customize or try to make something fit that it intended to fit in that truck. So now moving along, this is the daily inspection report. Here's a good example of one that I found on the internet. And this is one that we use pretty much every day. So we go to the truck. If you have more than one truck, you can put your truck numbers on there, but it basically allows you to go through and make sure that everything's working on your truck. So you know when something went out, or when something is starting to go out that you need to address it. Anything from the air conditioner to your brake lines, to your horn, to your headlights, okay? And that's important because, as I mentioned, these trucks are big, okay? So the last thing you want to do is get on the road and find out, okay, in a rainstorm, your windshield wipers don't work, okay? That could cause a bigger issue with you getting into an accident or not being able to make it to the event simply because you can't see, all right? So these types of things, these checklists will help you make sure you address those issues early enough to where you're not missing out on any money or causing yourself more hardship in the end. Preventative maintenance will decrease breakdowns, okay? The more you stay on your maintenance, the less breakdowns you're going to have. Small wear and tear will lead to bigger issues if not addressed. Schedule maintenance as you need. things as oil changes, tire rotations. Those things need to be placed on your schedule, and those days need to be blacked out on your schedule, and your truck needs to be off the road and addressed for maintenance on those days. Okay, and we try to get as much maintenance as we can on one maintenance day. All right, so what if I don't have a food business background? I'll turn this over to August, and he'll talk you through some of these topics.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I love it when Chef Ezra says something like, I can't find wild alligator meat here in Kansas City, as if it was just like a normal thing. I love you, man. I just love you. Anyway, no experience in restaurants, no experience in food trucks on my part. My only experience with restaurants and food trucks is that I ate their food. So I was as ignorant as someone could be going into this business. And people like Xander and Alex at the Innovation Center, the people with Mid-Continent Public Library and Square One workshops, owners of food trucks, Kim and Michelle with Coffee Cake KC, Brandon with Jazzy B, Christian with Taste of Brazil. These people allowed me to ask them questions about their businesses. One tip, don't go up to a food truck when there's 20 people in line, walk up to the serving window and say, hey, is now a good time to talk about starting a food truck? Shoot them an email, call them on the phone, find out a good time and place to talk about them. Dave McCarty, who built our truck, you saw a picture of that stripped down Ford Transit. He transformed the inside and walked me through every step of the way of what we were going to need for that food truck. The internet. If all you Google is do's, don'ts, food truck, you will have days and weeks worth of reading so you can get all the information you want. Look for the stuff that's being repeated from website to website. Those are the things that you're going to want to make sure that you follow those things. I'm a list guy. It allows me to keep track of what I'm doing. I want to be as prepared with my food truck as I was as a teacher in the classroom or as a coach on the field. One thing, the difference between being prepared and then over planning, you don't want to do so much planning that you become paralyzed, that you can't make a decision. Sometimes things just won't be perfect. So my mantra has always been since 1976 when I started teaching is adapt, improvise, and overcome. Quick story. We're heading out to Lee Summit. It's about an hour's drive. We're going to a church. We're going to serve 150 teenagers in 90 minutes. We pull up. Who forgot the key to the serving window in his other pants pocket? You're looking at him. So what did we do? We opened up the side door of the transit. It was not perfect, but we served 150 kids, all their ice cream sandwiches in 90 minutes. And that added 2 more things to my checklist for the starting off day. Yes, it's funny now. It was not funny then. So control what you can control. The young lady on the right is Susie. She is the better half of Ciao Bella Ice Creamery and Bakery. She is the baker. She handles everything. And so what we had to realize is we can only control what we can control. For example, we cannot control running out of double chocolate cookies and mint chocolate swirl ice cream. We just can't control that. And so if we have to put sold out signs up, then that's what we have to do. We can control what ingredients we use. We can control how we make everything by scratch. We can control that we arrive early. We can control that we get our orders out in 30 seconds or less. We can control how we interact with the people at the service windows. We interact with them the same way Susie and I interacted with our students in the classroom, with old-fashioned courtesy. Those are the things that you can control. And so you have to believe in what you are doing. One thing we wanted to make sure is that we wanted to set ourselves apart from other treat trucks. And so we wanted it to be great food, made well, presented well, and made everyone feel like they were a family member when they came to the truck. It is more than just serving great food. Because let's say you do make a great entree or a great treat, but the price is too high, or the portions are too small, or it takes you too long to get it out to your customers, or maybe the service person at the window is not really a people person. Now all of a sudden, your great food is taking a back seat to some negative things. Time management, organization is important. You've got to prioritize. You've got to prioritize every day. You've got to prioritize every week. Every morning, I wake up and ask myself this one question: what needs to get done today? And I make that list, and that is the first list I go after. Then my list of what do I want to get done today, then I can go after that list. The actual time you spend in your truck serving food is probably the smallest amount of time that you're going to spend before you get to the event and then after you get to the event. So your time management comes into play. Your lists come into play. I have a list that I look at before I put the key in the truck. I make sure that list is addressed before I get there. And then I've got a list of once I arrive on scene. And then I've got a list before I put the key in the truck to leave to go back to the commissary. So this next slide, the INGs take time. Boy, the INGs are just killers. Shopping, prepping, cleaning, posting, bookkeeping, networking, you name it, it all takes time. You've got to budget your time into what is a priority for you that day. You're not going to get to this whole list every single day, but there are days when a lot of these INGs are going to consume 8, 10, 12 hours of your day. And the very last bullet there says answering your phone and email. I'm always pleased when I have someone say, wow, you really got back to me in a timely fashion. I'm not used to that. That makes me feel good. And so make that a priority. If somebody's reaching out to you to get a quote or an availability, make sure you get back to them in a timely fashion. Okay, now Chef Ezra is going to talk about permits.
All right. Before I get into permits, I'm going to address one question that someone had about powering a food truck with a Joule battery. That is possible. Basically, a Joule battery is a rechargeable battery, usually that's recharged with solar power, or you can use direct current from a wall outlet. But basically, that is a system that has to be charged. Once that battery is depleted, I just read it takes about 28 hours to charge that battery back to 100% from 0%. And in a food truck situation, that just wouldn't be ideal because the amount of time and how hard we're working these trucks. Usually, some days we do 3 events back to back. You definitely usually have events back to back, day to day. So if you run that battery down, you would be out of commission for about a day and a few hours just to get the battery back charged. So that's a system that probably wouldn't work in this scenario. I think those are more used for camping and RV situations. There's actually a truck here in Kansas City that uses solar power, truck called Mudbugs that uses solar power to power his truck. Now, he told me he has about 20 car batteries that he had to get a special frame built for a truck because of the weight, just to store that energy. And I imagine that's because of the amount of how often he runs his truck, so he can get that amount of storage in, so he doesn't have to keep having to charge them down from 0% up to 75 or 100%. He can stay at about 60 to 50. So that's what I recommend for that. But you can go green with the food trucks. It's just you're gonna have to change how you basically set the truck up. And basically, there are two different power situations you have, from the liquid gas or propane that's gonna create the BTUs, the total BTUs you need to calculate for your truck. That's gonna be on the gas side. So anything that you're gonna be used to cook or have an open flame, that's gonna be used on the gas side. So whether it be liquid gas or propane. But your electric, your wattage, that's going to be calculated for anything that you'll be using to plug in. So like your refrigerators, your vent hood on your truck, any type of components you'll be running to plug in, such as a crock pot or a steamer, that's going to be calculated based on your wattage. Okay, that's where you have to figure out on your generator. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. So moving on to permits. Permits are basically going to be what you're going to need from the city or your local jurisdiction in order to operate, whether it be on a federal level, state level, or city or county level. So your business license is generally the first thing you'll need to start your operation, okay? And that's generally going to be filed with your state department. That business license is going to give you a state ID that you'll use to claim for your revenue and pay your taxes with the state, okay? Your employee identification number is going to be on the federal level, okay? That's what you're going to file with Uncle Sam, okay? That's going to collect any basically what you'll use to pay any federal taxes to Uncle Sam. Your vehicle license, basically anything that's going to need to operate. So a driver's license, your DMV, your registration, things of that, so you can get your truck actually registered in order to operate on the road in your state. Food handler's permit. We talked a little bit earlier about that. That's what you're going to need in order to operate with your health department, okay? They want to make sure that you guys have went through some type of valid training program, and this varies based on your jurisdiction, but make sure that you went through an approved safety program, that you know what you're doing when it comes to handling the food and serving your customers. Health department permit, okay? And this also varies, but generally you'll have to have either your commissary inspected by the health department and or your food truck inspected by the health department, okay? So here in Kansas City, it's just your food truck that'll be inspected. Your commissary, you have to have an agreement with them, and you present that once you get your food truck inspection. But on the Kansas side, it's a little different, okay? Fire certificates, all right? That's important because, as I mentioned, especially if you're dealing with anything with an open flame or grease, you need to make sure that all of your fire extinguishers have been pressurized and tested for that year. And if you have a vent hood, depending on your jurisdiction here in Kansas City, that has to be checked off every 6 months. Okay, so that's one of those biannual checks. Your fire extinguisher will be a yearly. Okay, but you don't want to get behind on those because, say you have a fire, you go to pull your fire suppression system, you hadn't had it checked in that allotted amount of time, you get a misfire, and you can get in a situation where you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off on the truck. So that's never good. All right. Never good. So moving on to codes. So these are going to be more or less things you're going to have kind of related to what we just talked about. Food safety handlers courses, okay? Making sure that your staffs are up to code. As your staff go through those food handlers courses, you need to make sure you keep a list of when they expire so that you can get them re-enrolled as their expirations come up. Your commissary agreement, you need to make sure you have that up to date and in your truck at all times so where you can present to an inspector if they come on your truck to show that this was the last day we were at the commissary. This is when we left out to go on our route, okay? Your ventilation hood, I mentioned earlier, making sure that that's checked off every 6 months. And that's really important because you need to stay on top of the maintenance of that because those things get really, really dirty. You need to make sure you're getting them clean and you're getting them inspected. Cleaning and storage. So making sure that you're storing things according to the health department. Particularly, you're not storing items on the floor. Okay, you're storing them 6 inches off of the floor so you don't have issues with things that they spill, they're getting contaminated. Fire suppression. Any type of fire suppression you have has to be inspected by a fire-approved company, okay? They'll come through, they'll pressure test that system, and they'll re-tag it, making sure, proving that it's good for the next year. Safety, food and people, making sure that you have all your checklists in place to make sure your staff stay safe. A big thing, an issue right now is the COVID protocols, making sure that your staff have masks, making sure that they have sanitizer, making sure that they're disinfecting items between customers if they're coming in contact with them. Water. So on your truck, you have portable water, you have gray, and you have your white water. So your white water being your clean water, your gray water being your dirty water. That water, you have to make sure you're dumping it out in an approved manner. So if you have a commissary, you're usually going to be dumping your wastewater out at your commissary. Serving, making sure you're serving your guests in a proper manner. You're not touching the money and then touching the food or touching the utensils as the food comes out of the window. That's a big thing. On our truck, we deal with Cajun seasoning a lot. So it's always somebody on the truck having to cover their nose or we wash their hands because occasionally as the Cajun seasoning blows around, they start sneezing, okay? Make sure that you're being vigilant, you're washing your hands, you're trying not to contaminate any of your food, okay? Equipment, okay? All of your equipment, particularly your fire-rated equipment. So if it's something that has an open flame or it's hooked up to the propane or the liquid gas system, it has to be approved, okay? They have seals on them that you don't need to take off, okay? Those seals are going to be basically what that equipment was rated for, what it was rated for, whether it was power or the suction on that equipment. So make sure that you're not using, as you buy used equipment, that you're checking to make sure that it has approved seal on it and that you're not using customized equipment, okay? You're not cutting something to make sure that it fits into your truck because that can void out the seal on that equipment. Interior construction, okay? So as you go about building out your truck, making sure you use a valid builder, okay? That's important to know where things go, how much power you're going to need so you don't have any shortages when it comes to needing extra BTUs or extra wattage to power your equipment. The last thing you want to do is get on your equipment, get on your truck, have your menu set, but you find out every time you plug in a crock pot, you're throwing a breaker, okay? So you can't use that crock pot. You got to figure out something else that's not taking as much wattage. Route sheets. Okay, this is important because you, as you go up on your route, your inventory, and also your commissary, as you have your supplies as you leave your commissary, you know where you're going and what targets you need to focus on hitting throughout your routes. This was big for us prior to COVID because we had a real solid route throughout the city where we would hit different areas of the city to make sure everybody got a chance to taste the food. So we knew where we were at last week versus where we need to go this week. Insurance, making sure that you have valid insurance on your truck. Everything from your motor vehicle insurance all the way to your liability insurance. Your motor vehicle insurance is just going to cover your actual truck if you get into an accident or if someone hits you. Your your liability insurance is going to cover any issues you have with your business operating. Say you got someone sick, Lord forbid, you got someone sick. Or you had an issue where it was a rainstorm, someone was still at the truck and the window fell on their head, okay, something like that. That's going to cover that issue. Also, your generator. Some jurisdictions have noise codes where your generator has to be what they call a quiet generator. So they rate that on a decimal level. So check with your local jurisdiction. Make sure that if you're required to have a generator that has a decibel requirement, you meet that requirement. You can be fined by your local jurisdiction if you don't. And last thing, keep a copy of your paperwork in your truck, okay? Particularly anything related to health department inspections, insurance inspections, as far as you get pulled over by a police officer, anything that's that you need to have a valid proof that you have. Make sure you have all that paperwork in your truck. We have a manual that we keep in our truck that has all those checklists, our route sheet, our commissary agreement, anything like that we need, and we just go straight to that manual if we have an issue come up. All right, and I'll let August get into this. We're going to talk about next fees, public events versus private events.
And this is something that Chef Ezra and I were talking about before we started this evening. You know, everyone needs their money, whether it's the federal, state, county, and city governments, the commissary, utilities, your phone, your insurance companies. Those are all things that's all part of running a business, and you've got to pay those bills. On the next slide, I talk about Kansas City is a great city to have fairs, festivals, and events that are open up to the whole city. But each one of those events charges you a fee. So a good example would be there was a festival that took place a couple weeks ago. I looked into it. They wanted $1,000 for us to operate Ciao Bella for the weekend. Well, we charge $5 for our ice cream sandwich. That means we would have to sell 200 ice cream sandwiches just to cover that $1,000 entry fee. Then we would start operating at our normal capacity. So we've decided over the last 3 seasons that we're going to steer away from those festivals and fairs just because of the amount of money that they cost to get there and start doing your business. So the neighborhoods, those really blew up last year during the first year of COVID. Schools, businesses, private parties, they don't charge a fee, but they are a lot smaller crowds. You typically do not have any competition, and that was something I wanted to mention with the fairs and the festivals. You know, at a school, we went to a school a couple of weeks ago, and we were the only treat truck there. If we were to go to a festival, I could guarantee you there'd be 5, 6, 7 treat trucks. And so there's a lot less competition with the private parties and schools and businesses, but they are smaller. One piece of advice I got from Kim and Michelle with KC Coffee Cake: decide what your guaranteed minimum payment is going to be, stick to it, and let your client know that there is going to be a guaranteed minimum payment of X amount of dollars if you don't make that money, and let them know that up front so they can decide whether or not to have you. So I think we are at the slide that says not sure where to start. So we.
Oh, sorry.
The effervescent Morgan Perry.
Lots of bubbles in here, peeps.
Lots
Lots
of
of bubbles. So I really want to know what your questions are. You guys keep it like tight to the chest. on this thing, and I'm dying to know what you want more information about. I know Megan's working on getting a question up over there. Here's what I want to tell you while you're exercising your fingers, getting them warmed up, putting those questions in there. Let's have them. If you are from a different state, different city, let's say, I don't know, maybe you're from St. Louis. If you are from somewhere else, in this guide, there's going to be very specific Kansas City, state of Missouri, state of Kansas information. It's not a total waste for you because it gives you an idea of places and people that you have to give money to. So what we try to express during this this class period is that there are routine places that are going to have information for food trucks. And it's going to be places like a Department of Transportation or a city licensing office. Those are going to be places that are going to have the answers to your questions. But we'd also like to do you one better. If you email us at square1@mymcpl.org, we will help you Google search for the entrepreneurial resources that are available to you where you live. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You're thinking, Morgan, I live in nowhere near anything Kentucky. There is no one helping entrepreneurs out here. You're wrong. You have state resources. All the states have state resources. Most of you are within an hour's drive of a small business and technology development center funded by the SBA. You have webinars, you have online coaches. It's just that we're kind of bad about talking about ourselves and our services. So sometimes people need a little help finding us, and we are happy to help you at Mid-Continent Public Library. Just reach out to us and we can help you find that closest SBA, SBDC, the closest SCORE mentors. And a lot of this business help is going to be free. You just might need a little help finding it. So let us help you with that. We're more than happy to. Do we have our first question looped up? Okay. Ooh, who's going to take it? Oh. All right, you're going to tag team? Okay, so somebody read it aloud. Can you see it from there?
Let's see.
Yeah, I can see it from here. Basically, the question is, someone is thinking about starting a food truck. They found an old school bus and they're thinking about, do I turn it into a food truck? They're going to have to gut it, so forth and so on. Or do I go with the straight food truck? My feeling is find someone that works on food trucks and ask them what it is they would have to do to get it up to code. That would be one of the first things that I would do. And then Chef had another thought.
Yeah, I would say what would be more your concept, a little bit more information about your concept, because I've seen some food trucks made out of school buses that were more on a rustic style that didn't require much modifications, that they were able to do that in a cost-effective manner. So you kind of got to figure out what's going to work for you. Of course, the food school bus is going to require more things to be taken out versus like a bread truck or something like that. But you got to weigh it versus your weight versus your reward. You know, are you going to have more space in a school bus versus a small box truck like our truck? So you kind of got to weigh what really is going to fit your concept. Okay.
She answered a bit of rustic.
A bit of rustic. So yeah, the food truck school bus may actually work. I know the one thing with the school bus that's going to be different is most school buses are diesel. Okay, so if you live in a northern state, diesel is usually not the way to go. Okay, because diesel basically it gels up like a petroleum. That's why you see 18 wheelers on the side of the truck street still running. They're trying to keep that diesel still warm to where it doesn't gel up. So if you have a diesel school bus, you park it on the side of at your commissary, and it freezes at night, you're not going to be able to get that truck started the next day. Okay?
And even here in Kansas City, take it from a former educator, we have had a couple of winters here where the buses would not start to get the kids going to school. And so, of course, we didn't have a snow day. We just had a cold day. A plus for the school buses, those things are built to last. And so that is a definite advantage to something like the school bus.
We have a little more info. She's in Alabama, and then we'll be looking at gourmet food.
Yeah. Yeah, so that may actually work.
Yep.
That may actually work. They're good on mileage. You know, you can run them up on the miles. They don't go that fast. That's the other thing. But you're not trying to go 80 miles down the street in a food truck anyway. So, but those are things you have to consider to kind of weigh your options.
All right. I feel like it's a telethon.
Yeah.
I'll come on and make another pitch for more donated questions. Thanks, guys, and thank you for that question. That was awesome. While we get the next question queued up, I just want to take a moment and talk to you all about networking. So sometimes businesses don't realize how important it is to talk to each other. And in food trucks, that is, 200% true. Networking. Now, we are luckier than most in Kansas City. Kansas City is still a place where you can get almost anybody to go out and get a cup of coffee with you. If you are not from Kansas City and you need to network with other food truckers, I highly recommend that if you are currently in business, taking them some of your product and saying hi when the event is slow or lunch is slow. Or reaching out via email and asking someone if they would taste your food and give you their opinion on it. That is wildly successful for trucks around here, and it's a very simple thing to do. Now, if there are 100 trucks at this event, I do not suggest you give away 100 entrees. That sounds silly. Maybe narrow the list down and think about who doesn't do what you do, but might have access to information that you might need, and then make an acquaintance. Have a conversation, see if you can build that professional relationship so that if you're ever at a place where you ran out of something or you forgot something other than the key to your own truck or something of that nature, you've got someone that you can call on. Another thing I want to point out for you is that 16-week startup guide that we talked about tonight. Really get that out and read it. Read it line by line. Print off a couple of copies so you can strike through it or highlight it or mess it up. I don't know, if you really hate lists, cut out each thing as you go through them and accomplish them. But use it. You can always print off another one. We've been doing this kind of work through the public library for a long time. And one thing that we know that really, truly works is putting the information in your hands, making it into a list, and you just keep battling that list every day until you get yourself on the streets selling those tacos, delivering that pasta, whatever it is. I think we got a donut truck that's with us tonight watching, whatever it takes. Now I'm going to tell you about help again, because a lot of people, man, we think we're John Wayne, right? And no matter how much something hurts, we're just going to tighten those strings on our boots a little bit tighter. Ask for help. If you don't know who to ask for help, email us and ask us for help. We are happy, overjoyed to connect you with the entrepreneurial resources in your community. And if they don't want to help you, that's cool. I'll take you back and I'll brag to everybody else I was helping somebody in a different state. We'd love to help you. That's how serious we are about businesses in our community. You all matter. And your Chamber of Commerce might not know that you matter yet, but we're here to prop you up and support you until everybody else knows you matter. And I'll tell you what, people doing what you're doing contribute. You make jobs. And we want to give you what you need so you can make more jobs. Okay, got a question? All right, what do we got?
All right, so someone is going to look at a food truck this week that was previously permitted in their county. What are some good initial questions to ask about the truck?
Okay, so the question is, someone is going to look at a previously permitted food truck in their county, and they want to know what are some good questions to ask prior to buying the truck. I would say the first thing you want to do is take a mechanic with you to go view the truck, okay? The mechanic can give you a good idea of how sound that truck is, mechanically and structurally. If it has any issues with the rust or any issues with the springs. They can pretty much give you a good idea on what's going on with that. As far as the inside, you're gonna have to kind of go in and get a good gut call for it. But you kind of generally want to know how old the equipment is in that particular truck. And you want that person to start up everything for you. Go ahead and have them start up the refrigerators, start up the fire equipment, and make sure that it's starting up okay. All right. The refrigerators, you just want to make sure that they get cold if you can. It shouldn't take no more than 20 minutes for them to feel cold to the touch. Those would be the couple things that I would recommend.
Absolutely. And look at the shape of it. Is it clean? Does it look like it's been well maintained? Do they have proof of purchase? Did they buy it new? Did they buy it used? Where did they buy it from? How long had it been used before they ever bought it? And you want to make sure that the kind of food truck you're buying is going to be the same kind of food truck that you're planning on running. You know, it wouldn't make any sense for me to buy Chef Ezra's truck and run an ice creamery out of Chef Ezra's truck. If you're going to need a flat top, make sure that truck has a flat top. If you're going to need a fryer, if you're going to need some kind of refrigeration, you want to make sure you know what you're going to need in your truck when you go to look at someone else's truck.
And one thing that was key with us when we built out our truck was we had our menu kind of developed, kind of what we had a general idea of what we wanted to cook out of a truck. We gave that to the builder. That's all he really requested we give him. And he looked at the menu, seeing what type of equipment we needed, and he said, this is the equipment you're going to need. Where do you want it in the truck? Once we had an idea of the equipment we needed, then we kind of placed it out in the truck, mapped it out, and seeing what would fit based on the order that we want the food to come in and go out the window. But the three most expensive things on our truck was the equipment, the cooking equipment, the generator, and the wrap. Those were the three most expensive things in our truck. Everything else kind of was minor, but those are going to be your general higher expenses.
All right, we've got another question from Angel Harris. Hey, Angel, thanks for joining us tonight.
Okay, I'm a treats business that catered to baked goods, birthday cakes, pudding, cheesecake jars. Also work the kids crafting, decorating their own cakes and cupcakes. I decided to purchase a food trailer to cater to kids and adding food to my menu. One of my questions is, would I need to have a special insurance for the kids to decorate baked goods that we make, or doing any hands-on activity with them? Absolutely.
They also added more permits in a later question.
Okay, and I'll address liability insurance. You definitely want to have plenty of liability insurance for any type of interaction with your customers, whether all you're doing is giving them food, because God forbid somebody, gets a piece of pecan stuck in their throat, or while the kids are decorating your cupcakes, some child squirts some decoration in some other kid's eye. So if you can imagine it happening, it might happen. And so you want liability insurance. And so you also asked about permits. Chef, you want to talk about
You
permits?
probably want to check with your local health department, but more than likely, if they're decorating their own treats and eating their own, like say they're decorating their own cupcake and eating it, as opposed to decorating it and giving it to someone else, you should be okay. But the best thing to do is check with your local health department and just run that by them. But I couldn't see an instance where you would need to get an extra permit for that part.
All right, we've got Diane, and Diane is starting a tent for pizza, so doing some pop-ups. What's your advice to someone that's tenting it out before they get a truck?
Check with your local health department. Yeah, definitely. Down the tents. One of the big things with the tents is how you're going to prevent the bugs and things like that from coming in and out of the tent. So they want you to be able to make sure you have an area that you can either mask off with like a screen to keep the bugs out. and you're not coming in and out and basically letting those bugs or anything in there. That's the one big thing I know with the tents, but they're generally friendly when it comes to those. What you'll probably need is a temporary inspection. One big thing you'll need with that is making sure you have a hand sink. Okay, you got some like a free flowing hand. Well, now you won't have a sink, but basically you need to have an area where you can go and wash your hands, and the water will come out basically with the gravity, and you'll have something to catch that water. So basically, get like a big water container. You can use like a 5-gallon water container, and then have like a 5-gallon bucket under there to catch that water. But you just need to have something where you can go up to it, open it, and let the water free flow out, and wash your hands, and then close it off.
And we got our sink from a company called Pratt's Direct, and you can look them up on the internet. They've got a really nifty 4-sink hand wash sink, and then your 3 sinks you're going to need, and it's all enclosed. It's on casters, so that might work well for your tent. But you're also going to have to think about your generators. Are you using a stone oven? Are you just warming up the pizzas? Are you going to make the pizzas there? So are you going to be making all of this in the open air? So you're going to want to think about, do you want to close off 3 sides of your tent and only have one side open to where the public comes up and orders from you? But you are going to have to worry about your power supply. So your generators are going to be there, probably going to want to use inverter generators because of the noise issue. And then also your refrigeration to keep all of your ingredients cold, because if you're going to have a pop-up tent, or you're going to be there 2 or 4 or 6 hours, even 2 hours is a long time to keep ingredients cold enough where the health department is okay with you being out there in the open air.
And then the elements, the heat. Are you doing this during a hot time of the season? Are you doing it during a colder time? That also will come into play. But the good thing about your operation is you'll be able to really truly test how quick you can get a order out versus how long you have to store that item. So that's one good thing you'll be able to try out in the tent method and get a good idea of, can you make your slices to order or your pieces to order, or do you need to have them have like some kind of pre-made and then warm them up?
All right, we've got a question about generators. What do you all recommend for the best low noise generator?
I have 2 inverter generators. You're asking yourself, Vincent, why do you have 2? Because remember how I said Vincent was the most ignorant person in the room? Yes, I was ignorant because I thought 1 generator would be enough to run our truck. It was not. We needed a second generator because we had a RV air conditioner put into or put on top of our truck, because I had forgotten that cookies do not respond well to 98 degree heat and humidity. So we've got to run an air conditioner. So we've got a inverter generator that we got from Home Depot, and then we got an inverter generator that we got from Harbor Freight. Both have been workhorses. I did learn how to do things like change the oil and take care of a inverter generator, but definitely an inverter generator is going to take care of any local noise issues, no matter what they are.
Yeah, Harbor Freight has the most cost-effective brand or place you can go is probably Harbor Freight, and use a Predator brand. They have one that's pretty popular. We run a Honda inverted 75 watt, 7500 watt generator. So those are going to be probably 2 best ones. The Honda, I believe, is rated top of the line for the quiet, but it's a $4,000 generator. The Predator, you can get those, I think, starting at around $800. So those are kind of the price differences. Predators, you'll need 2 of those to max out what the Honda's putting out. So you can get the Predator line for about $1,600 versus the $4,000 for the Honda. So that's kind of the cost differences. But the one thing I noticed with the generator, I can only find one guy in the city that works on my generator. So that becomes a pain because it's just when it's down, I can only go to that one guy. So and he says basically like a car engine. So that particular generator. So it's kind of hard to find people to work on it. The Honda.
And one thing I found out is if you need, say, 5,000 watts, and Harbor Freight doesn't make a 5,000 watt generator, what you can do is, say, get two 2,500 watt generators, two 3,500 watt generators. There is a special cord that they make that will link those two generators and will actually be like giving you 5,000 watts of starting power.
Yeah.
2 more questions came in. First question, is it legal to cook with either charcoal or firewood inside a food truck in Kansas or Missouri?
I know not on the Missouri side. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure not. Yeah. And that's going to be something that I want to say the health department and the fire people will be able to tell you that. But I know in Missouri you cannot use charcoal or open fire.
No, in Kansas, I think there's a couple of holdouts, and it used to be in Kansas that you could do firewood, or like the fire pizza guy used to put it away from his truck.
Mm-hmm.
But really check into that because it is absolutely a no-go in Missouri.
Yeah.
Before I decided to do the ice creamery and bakery, I was thinking about doing a grilled cheese and mac and cheese truck, and it was going to be, I was going to use a trailer, and that was one of the first things I found out was I was going to have to cook with propane.
Yeah.
And not any kind of wood or charcoal.
Yeah.
Next one, what equipment do you use for your cookies? Ovens, coolers, holding items?
To store the cookies or bake the cookies?
I think in total.
Susie takes care of all the baking. I take care of all the ice cream making, but she bakes all of her cookies at the commissary, the Innovation Center commissary in Independence. So she makes all the dough, bakes all the cookies there, and then we store them for the event in these plastic boxes that we found at Menards that lock tight. We glad wrap the top. We put 2 slices of white bread inside the box, glad wrap it, snap it shut. It keeps the cookies fresh for the entire day and into the next day. And then after that, we've got more cookies to make. But we use, they're probably about 3 times as big as a shoebox. And so we also have, when we're selling everything, I've got wire mesh baskets attached to the wall over the freezer. So when somebody orders a vanilla bean and chocolate chip ice cream, I'll dip the vanilla bean, I'll reach up, grab 2 of the chocolate chip cookies, make the sandwich, and hand it out. So the shoe boxes, or the cookie boxes, we found at Menards. The wire mesh baskets we found at Menards, and I got them so that 2 boxes will fit into 1 wire mesh basket, so they fit perfectly.
All right, last question. If there are any questions after this one, please DM us, the Business of Food Trucks, and we will get with somebody and try to get you an answer. So last question tonight. What are the pros and cons of a trailer versus a truck?
All right. So the one thing with the trailer, one of the pros is you're able to get in smaller spots. Okay. Usually those trailers are a little bit smaller. You have to arrive a little earlier in order to park the truck, but you're usually able to get those in tighter, narrower spots. They don't require as much DMV requirements as far as getting it registered with the state, okay? Because you're not actually registering the vehicle, you're registering the trailer. I'm trying to think of some cons with one. Probably smaller, less space. That's one thing for sure.
Another con would be if I was doing the trailer, I would have crashed it, because you have to realize that when you're backing up and you turn right, you're actually going left, and when you want to go left, you got to turn right or whatever. So if you don't have any experience with the trailer, you definitely want to do a lot of practicing, because like Chef Ezra said, you're going to have to get into some tight spaces, and you've got to be a master of getting that trailer in, have it be parallel to where everybody's going to be, unhook it, and then drive your truck away. But way less expense for a trailer than a truck.
Less overhead, less maintenance, things of that sort. But some of the cons, definitely less space.
All right, guys. Awesome job tonight. Thank you so much.
Right.
This was an absolute blast. Everybody, if you do us a huge favor, get into that survey. Please, we read these top to bottom. Tell us what you want to see next. We bring back Chef. We bring back August. Tell us what you want to talk about. We want to talk about it too. Here's our upcoming schedule. On Tuesday, October 26th, 6 p.m., we've got Jackie from, she was in Forbes magazine. Jackie was in Forbes magazine with Cafe, just killing it out there. And then Xander, he's at the Innovation Center. That's cool too. And then we've got Regulatory Rundown. Sometimes it feels like a rundown, on November 16th. And then if you know anyone who needs this information in Spanish, we also have on November 13th, as part of Global Entrepreneurship Week, we've got a whole 2-hour workshop in Spanish on how to start a food truck. Check us out, message us, fill out the survey. Thank you all so much for hanging in tonight. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation for funding programming like this. I tried to sound like PBS. I don't know if I hit it or not. Everybody have a good night.
Arrivederci. Have a good night.